Let me tell you about how I wasted almost $1,000 on homeschool curriculum and why half of it ended up in the trash by Christmas. Now, I don't want that for you. So today I'm sharing the mistakes that I made, the lessons that I learned, and the four-step system that I now use to choose homeschool curriculum with confidence and clarity. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by curriculum decisions, whether you're brand new to homeschooling or maybe you're just reevaluating things for this school year, then this episode is for you. Hi, I'm Eline, a homeschool mom of two. And in this episode, I'm talking about how to find the right homeschool curriculum for your family. Because if there's one thing that trips us homeschool parents up, especially when we're first starting our homeschool journey, it's this one, it's curriculum. So let's take a step back. Let's rewind back to my first full year of homeschooling. So it was during the height of COVID, and work for me was really busy, and I wanted to start homeschooling really in the easiest ways possible. So in my mind, that meant that I needed an all-in-one curriculum because I didn't have time to be doing all the researching and the digging and all that. So I ended up picking a curriculum that I was somewhat familiar with because I remembered it from the Christian school that I went to growing up, and they used it there. And it checked all the boxes because it contained all the subjects, it had all the workbooks, all the tests, all the answer keys, all of it. So it was basically a full curriculum in a box. So I thought that was perfect, but I was wrong. So with the math and the language arts materials, my kids were way, way, way ahead of where the books were. So it was kind of a waste. And then with the history and the science materials, they were just a mess. Like they were totally useless. And I know it seems like common sense now, but back then I didn't even consider what the publisher's worldview, the publisher of the curriculum that I was using, what it might mean in terms of how the curriculum was being presented to my children. So anyway, by the time Christmas rolls around, I was done, right? It didn't even matter to me anymore that I had spent all that money on this curriculum because I was over it. I gave away the math and language arts books since they were serviceable. They just weren't right for our family. But the rest of it, it went straight in the trash because I wouldn't have felt right about giving that to another family anyway. Now, that experience may have cost me almost $1,000, but it taught me something that was even more valuable. And it said it's not about picking the most popular curriculum. It's about choosing resources that align with your kids, with your education goals, and with your family's priorities. So from that day forward, I just started doing two things. The first was that I started researching and building a list of curriculum options that I trust and that I would feel comfortable recommending to other homeschool families, especially for homeschool families of color. And then the other thing I did was that I started to create a system for how I'd start evaluating learning materials moving forward. So if they can pass that test, that evaluation, then that's how they would end up on that curriculum list that I was compiling. And as a homeschool coach, whenever I support a homeschool family, whether they're brand new to homeschooling or they want some different learning materials, I always walk them through this same four-step process. And so that you can feel more confident selecting curriculum for your family, I'm going to walk you through that process now. So let's get into it. All right, step one, you got to know your child's learning style. So think about this. Is your child a hands-on learner? Are they a visual learner? Maybe they're an auditory learner, or do they love reading and writing? The key is to start here because if your curriculum doesn't match how your child naturally learns, you'll both be frustrated. And it doesn't do anybody any good to match up maybe a visual learner with audio lessons if that's not their jam, right? And let me be clear, it's not that you need the flashiest program or the most expensive or most complex curriculum out there. You just need learning materials that fit your actual kid and how they like to learn. Now, step two is that you want to identify what you as a family actually need, because you'll find that not every subject needs a full-on curriculum. Now, personally, I do like using structured curriculum programs for math and with language arts, but for some of our other subjects, I mix it up. So I use free resources like PBS Learning, I use Khan Academy, I even use YouTube. And then don't forget about your public library. So if your library is anything like ours, I can use their databases to find all types of trusted learning resources that are really, really useful, especially if you already have a solid outline of what you want to study. And then another option is field trips. So field trips or even homeschool workshops at places like museums or the zoo, they might happen like once a week, once a month, and they might cover a certain theme over the course of a few weeks. And that may very well be sufficient for maybe your science curriculum. So for example, I live in Dallas and the Dallas Arboretum offers homeschool learning days where once a month they offer hands-on classes in life science and in STEM. So in this case, instead of me going out and purchasing a science textbook, these in-person hands-on workshops, classes, could really be a worthwhile alternative and a whole lot of fun for my kids too. But the point is that you get to decide what subjects might require that formal curriculum, maybe with textbooks and so forth, and which ones you might be able to get a little bit more creative with. Now let's talk about step 3. And that is to let your family's priorities lead the way. And so this one, especially for me, is a really big one. And I would imagine for other families of color, for multicultural households, or for anyone who's ever maybe felt left out or misrepresented in mainstream education. Because if you're looking for learning materials, you're going to want to ask yourself these questions. Does this curriculum affirm who my child is? Does it reflect the stories and the brilliance that I want them to know? And if I purchase this curriculum, will I still need to constantly supplement just to make it feel complete or accurate? The thing is this, we deserve learning materials that don't erase us or make us feel like an afterthought. So my advice would be, if the curriculum doesn't pass the vibe check for this particular step, I would steer clear of it altogether. And then here's step 4, avoid decision fatigue, because endless scrolling is not a strategy. So honestly, once you've covered the first 3 steps that we talked about, you should really be in good shape to make a good decision on a curriculum or a learning resource. So I want you to trust your judgment. You don't need to compare every single program out there in order to make a good choice for your family, because these steps are a solid starting point that will help you move forward with confidence. And if you love this, but maybe you're ready to skip the line, maybe you need a little cheat code, I've got something for you. If you want to bypass a lot of the initial research so that you can head straight to selecting a curriculum that fits your family, I created the Homeschool Curriculum Guide for Families of Color, and I used these exact steps that I just walked you through to pinpoint vetted curriculum options that are organized by subject and by style, a section dedicated to culturally affirming learning materials, AI search prompts to help you get specific based on your child's needs, and notes on cost, flexibility, and worldview so that you can make an informed decision about these companies that you spend your money on. Now, you can find it on my website, homeschoolourway.com, and I'll also put the link in the description or the show notes. But trust me, this is the exact resource that I wish that I had that first year before I spent all that money on a curriculum that wasn't even a fit for our family. So here's the bottom line. If finding the right curriculum has you stressed all the way out, I just want you to know that you've got this. First, you start with your child's learning style. Make sure that you know that. Then determine what your family actually needs, and then let your family's priorities lead the way. And always trust your instincts. Give yourself the freedom to pivot when you need to. So that's all I got for you today. I want you to make sure that you subscribe and keep tuning in for continued support in your homeschool journey. And don't forget, learning never, ever stops. And homeschool is a beautiful way to live that out. I'll see you in the next one.